Next, we're going to hear from Laura Dawson. Laura is as the interim director with the Council of the Great Lakes Region. Council of the Great Lakes Region is a fairly new organization, one of the growing number of GL organizations, right? Great Lakes organizations. People have asked me, why do we have so many? Not just one more, but why do we have so many? They all serve great purpose. Great Lakes governance takes a little bit of time to figure out sometimes for those of us that practice at the regional level. However, they have great relevance and they're working on important issues of the day. So with that, thank you for joining us, Laura, and please join us.
Thanks, John. I was trying to think of a good analogy for what Council of the Great Lakes Region is, because I used to be a professor, and it's always good to teach in stories. And so I was thinking about all the great work that so many important institutions already do. Council of Great Lakes Governors and the Cities Initiative and so on. And so I was thinking about, okay, they're like something solid that you kind of pour a connective dough around. So like a fruit cake. And I went, oh, fruits and nuts surrounded by dough. That doesn't really work. So I'm still working on the analogy. If you can come up with something better than fruits and nuts, I'd appreciate that. Before, in my previous life, I was a international trade specialist, helped countries like China and Russia get into the WTO. I'm also one of these people that doesn't really recognize borders. Not only did my grandfather come from the U.S. to Canada, I was born in Sault Ste. Marie, so close to the line that I actually thought I was an American. And actually every morning I'd get up and watch Romper Room and recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I didn't realize until I was 4 years old that I wasn't an American. So I have this sort of border blindness. And this has sort of informed everything that I've been doing. And so I left the international sphere and I started working for, you guessed it, the government of the United States. I worked for David Jacobson as when he was U.S. ambassador, and I was his international trade and economic advisor on things Canadian. And it became clear to me in that job that all of the important international trade, economic, commerce, regulatory aspects of that relationship were at the state, provincial, and city level. It also became increasingly clear that this Great Lakes region, in the heart of it all, was not getting enough attention. As Carol just said, we just don't have a voice in Washington or in Ottawa. It gets diluted by other things, and we haven't come together effectively enough as a region. As I said, there's a lot of important organizations doing important work, but I think that we need to have more ways to magnify and expand this work. I mean, we've been talking about the incredible things that are going on between Michigan and Ontario. And it's such an important relationship, and I just, as an aside, it strikes me that this is such a large, important economic relationship, but you all kind of know each other. And when I say Anne-Marie, you know who I'm talking about. It's like Madonna or Jim or the great Roy and Maddie thing. You know what that means. You don't even need a last name to be, part of, at the core of this important relationship. But can you say that you've got the same connectivity to Quebec and New York State, Ohio, Indiana, etc.? So we don't have this, stuck-in relationship that I think we need to have. So regions matter. As an international trade consultant in my other life, I'm the part-time executive director of SIGLR right now. We just about have a full-time ED, and I'm going to be very grateful for that day to come. But in my other work, I advise companies on how to get stuff across the border faster, better, cheaper. Did you know that it takes 15 pieces of paper to get a cow from Michigan to Ontario? How is that possible, 15 pieces of paper? That the cost of regulatory and border barriers adds 2 to 10% of the cost of a final good. China is eating our lunch on labor costs. We're never going to be able to compete again on cheap labor. So what we have to do is increase our efficiency, our competitiveness, We have to invest in technology, and we have to reduce whatever costs we possibly can. And that means thinking like a region, thinking as though the border doesn't matter and that we don't need to have these extra costs and inefficiencies, because as almost everyone has said this morning, we build the things together. We've seen the statistics. 1/3 of the combined GDP of North America comes from here. 200 million jobs in Canada and the US come from here. And we got to be able to do that better in order for us to enjoy the same quality of life that we have in the past, because the emerging markets are coming and they're taking no prisoners. We got to be better, faster, stronger. So, as I said, I was struck by the fact that the most important economic questions are now at the state and provincial and municipal level, but we're not doing a good enough job at figuring these things out and not getting overwhelmed by national border and trade issues, Buy American, etc. So I was encouraged by my former boss, David Jacobson, and Gary Dewar, and Admiral Michael Parks, former Rear Admiral, leader of the Coast Guard, District 9, that we ought to come together in this organization, the Council of the Great Lakes Region. So I called up some folks at the University of Toronto at the Mowat Center who had been doing some really important work on the Great Lakes, once again inspired by that Brookings Vital Commons initiative, and also the Canada-US Law Institute at Case Western in Cleveland, which I love, and it's a beautiful, beautiful city. And those two organizations became our partners, our mother and father. And if I can also add Jim Blanchard, who is everywhere, has been a sort of spiritual leader, the godfather on this, and I just thank him so much for taking my phone calls and meeting with me every time I have a wild idea and saying, Laura, you Canadians are probably right. You're just too persistent. You're too nitpicky, And so he's been a great mentor, and I just appreciate his leadership so much. So we were able to pull together the broad strokes of this organization. We launched in Cleveland in April. And what we seek to do, and are getting better at it every day, is to help provide a voice, a springboard for the great work that organizations are already doing, and to help knit together 8 states, 2 provinces, in a way that maybe they haven't come together so much in the past. What we want to do is fill gaps, not only in delivering the mail from the great work that Britt there with the Great Lakes Hazard Coalition is doing, taking his stuff over to another region, or from the hazard side onto the economic side or the environmental side. So delivering the mail from one region and sector to the other. And also, we've got a lot of smart people. We've got a lot of smart people attached to the think tanks here, the work at Michigan State, the various other university organizations. We're attached to, as I said, University of Toronto, Case Western. What can we do to fill the information gaps so we really know what it is we're asking for when we go to Washington or Ottawa or Beijing? So we have to be able to fill those gaps as well. So we have some research capacity within SIGLR. Isn't that a great acronym, SIGLR? That comes from Rear Admiral Michael Parks. We were going with Kogler or something else. It goes, no, it's SIGLR. So we have this capacity to be doing research, to be building bridges. And so some of our initial projects are a study on the economic effects of Great Lakes, changing Great Lakes water levels. We're expecting that this report should be ready in the next couple of months. It's got a lot of attention. It's picked up a lot of traction and support, and we're hoping it provides some very important answers as to how we should be positioning ourselves economically, environmentally, as cities, as regions, as countries, to deal with the changes in that area. So we have a water level study. This week we're putting in a submission to the U.S.-Canada Regulatory Cooperation Council, which deals with how to reduce the costs of regulatory duplication, certification, and inspection. We think this is very important. It's a national initiative, but we want to make sure that these governments keep paying attention to it, because it's the US states that are at the border and the Canadian provinces that are at the border that are having the most, that are the most affected by regulatory differences. And so we need to keep moving this ahead as well. We've got a tourism initiative in looking at ways that we can market this region into third countries, China, etc. We're looking at labor issues. I asked that question earlier. How can we make it easier for skilled professions, skilled trades to move from one jurisdiction to the other? We've been working on some of these things with the labor unions and ways to recognize skills faster and easier. We're hoping to integrate a program with veterans into that. And definitely, we will take up the challenge of Bill Rustin. We want one or two of the Council of the Great Lakes Governors initiatives that we can help out with, because that's our lot. We want to be able to help to act as though the border doesn't matter in this region. Thank you.